Since the beginning of time, breast milk has been the primary food source for infants and young children, channeling nutrients and immunities from mother to child. Breastfeeding has been the norm for nourishing children until the 20th century, when the bottle feeding and formula methods became the more dominant trend. Because of the transition from breast milk to formula, breastfeeding is no longer widely considered necessary to the child's health. In fact, children all over the world are suffering from the misuse of formula.
1.5 million babies per year die from the misuse of formula. Now that's a worldwide average, so you have to take into that scope, every country that you're thinking of.
What research truly indicates is that breast milk is the best source of nutrition for the child. In fact, when children are not formula fed, they are at an increased risk for several issues, including childhood obesity, ear infections, lower respiratory infections, sudden infant death syndrome, juvenile diabetes, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, childhood cancers, eczema, tooth decay, multiple sclerosis, constipation, urinary tract infection, and abandonment. Mothers decrease the child's risk for these problems when they nourish him or her with breast milk. Research shows that breastfed children receive many benefits: better immunity from antibodies, optimal brain development, and protection against allergies and asthma. Dr. Brian Turner, professor of political science at Randolph-Macon College, incorporates anthropologist Catherine A. Detweiler's work on breastfeeding in his Intro to Theory and Methods course. He had the following to say about the benefits of breastfeeding.
It's a responsibility to the child because breastfeeding is, as she argues, and I think convincing, that it's superior for the child's health, right? For both the nutritional, for the bonding, and for the protection against disease.
In addition to the positives that children receive from breastfeeding, the mother also benefits.
For every year that you breastfeed, you reduce your risk of breast cancer by 4%.
Furthermore, as the act of breastfeeding is analyzed on a global scale, various beliefs and customs come into play. For instance, many African tribes look down upon the American view of the breast. Take the African country of Mali, where breasts have no sexual association for men or women, and breasts exist solely for the purpose of feeding children. When anthropologist Catherine Detweiler traveled to Mali for her research on the matter, she found that her informants were, quote, bemused or horrified and regarded the American view as unnatural and perverted behavior, finding it difficult to believe that men would become sexually aroused by women's breasts. This view of the breast is very common among other African nations, including Nigeria and Ethiopia. In these countries, mothers breastfeed their children for 2 or more years, and it is not only socially acceptable, but women are expected to breastfeed in public. In Nigeria, women who practice bottle feeding are viewed to have a higher status. Lastly, in Central American cultures, breastfeeding varies by social class and is common in public areas. In Central America, mothers with higher income prefer to bottle feed and rely heavily on formula, whereas lower-class women breastfeed because they cannot afford to buy formula. Furthermore, because of the inadequate supply of clean water in Central America, breastfeeding may be the only option.
So what's the big deal? If breastfeeding has so many benefits for the child, why are mothers in the United States and all around the globe formula feeding their babies? Recognizing the benefits of breastfeeding, the World Health Organization recommends that women breastfeed exclusively for at least a year and supplement breast milk until the child's 2nd year. The average amount of time that American women breastfeed their child is 7 to 10 days. So what is it that's keeping women from doing what is supposedly so natural?
America has become an increasingly sexualized society. Today, breasts are more often seen as a sexual part of a woman's body rather than a means for feeding a child. In 2005, more than 360,000 women and teenagers underwent surgery to have their breasts enlarged with silicone or saline implants. The large number of breast augmentation surgeries is a clear indication of the way the American society perceives the use of the breast. Rather than preparing their bodies for breastfeeding a child, women are more focused on making their breasts more sexually attractive. This skewed view of the natural use of breasts affects women's decision to breastfeed.
And we're just breast people. And I think that we've really come to see breasts as like sexual
Mm-hmm.
accessories. It's still the breasts belong to men thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, I think it's creepy on some level. I don't know how that works.
As America has made the move towards formula and bottle feeding, many other countries are attempting to follow in this direction. In the 1960s and 70s, as formula feeding was beginning to increase in the United States, formula companies began distributing free formula in third world countries. According to Catherine Detweiler, an anthropologist from Millersville University, these companies attempt to argue that breastfeeding is restrictive to women in order to promote their products. Because these third world countries were attempting to be more Americanized, they were giving their babies formula, which had to be mixed with poor water. As a result, many infants in third world countries die from diarrhea and other nutritional problems. As cultures transition to formula feeding, we recognize that their decrease in the number of breastfeeding women is due to an American influence in their society.
There are two very specific ways that women are not receiving support to breastfeed. First, some women do not have adequate health care and regular doctor's appointments. Second, breastfeeding mothers rarely have sufficient facilities in the workplace to make breastfeeding a viable option.
A large number of women initiate breastfeeding while they are in the hospital, but only continue for approximately a week. The drop-off rate is often related to a lack of support for indigent populations. The women without appropriate health care do not attend their first appointment with the pediatrician, which occurs about a week after the child is born. Because they are not receiving support from a healthcare professional, these women choose to stop breastfeeding.
In general, women are not provided places in order to breastfeed in the workplace. The workplace does not provide designated areas for breastfeeding or pumping breast milk. As our society starts to become more aware of the needs of breastfeeding women, they're becoming more in tune with the facilities needed to support women. For example, according to the New York Times, when a woman at the Starbucks corporate headquarters in Seattle returns from maternity leave, she is able to slip away from her desk and behind the doors of the lactation room, sit in a plush recliner and behind curtains, and leaf through In Style magazine as she holds a company-supplied pump to her breast, depositing her breast milk in This a showed bottle a to major be toted breakthrough home for later. women because they're at least given the facility to do so. As most women re-enter the workforce, they're not able to breastfeed as easily, which causes discomfort for the mother and lack of supply of breast milk because they're not able to do so. A contributing factor in why women stop breastfeeding their child is because they're not given the opportunity to breastfeed or pump while at work.
As we have seen, breastfeeding is quite the complex issue. It is an issue in which all women must be informed not just for the benefit of their baby, but for themselves as well. So what really is the big deal about breastfeeding? It affects us all in the way of culture, society, and political realms.